That's great. Well, welcome everybody. It's 3 o'clock and we're going to tie a Conehead bunny muddler today. And I think it's the same fly as the Zuddler. I believe. I don't know much about the origin of this fly. I mean, it's obviously based on a Zonker, which is a streamer fly with a rabbit strip tied across the back, and a muddler. So Zuddler makes sense. I don't know who originally came up with the name, but it's a combination of a couple patterns, and it's a very effective pattern. So I'm going to get some things out of the way before you even ask your questions. I like them in size 6. Okay, I like them in size 6. Size 8 maybe. I think size 4 is too big, and if you can tie these in a size 10, you're a better tyer than I am. There's a lot of stuff to cram onto this fly, and to try to do it in a size 10 hook with that deer hair collar, a little bit more than I'm willing to do. So if I'm going to use a size 10 streamer, I'll probably go to something simpler like a woolly bugger or a sculpin with maybe a rabbit fur collar instead of a deer hair collar. So size 6 is a good size. It's a good all-around size. It's big enough for bigger fish. Even little fish will eat a size 6. You can put quite a bit of weight on a size 6 so it sinks well. And, let's face it, streamers are mostly lures. So you're not trying to imitate a specific size of bait fish or crayfish or anything. If a fish is going to eat a sculpin this big, it'll probably also eat a sculpin that big without much hesitation and without much difference. Now you're also going to ask, what colors do you tie it in? I know that. I like them in lots of colors, but I like to have at least one light one and one dark one in my fly box. So you could do white and black. You could do tan and olive. You might want a bright colored one like a yellow. I have to admit I have had poor success with orange on this fly. For some reason, there's some really cool tiger striped orange Zonker strips, and for some reason for me, I've not had good luck with orange, and I'm not sure why, because there's crayfish are kind of rusty orange, but yellow works, white works, black works, olive works, tan works, and any other color you can come up with, and you can combine colors as well. So size 6, we're going to tie an olive one today because I have some nice olive Zonker strips. I actually have most colors of Zonker strips, but olive is a really good color for this fly. Okay. So a couple things before we get started. One is that when you're going to need a Zonker strip, which is this rabbit fur that's been cut, and it's still got the skin on it so that you can tie it across the top of the hook. Okay, probably most of you know what a Zonker strip is. And unfortunately, when you buy Zonker strips, usually they're balled into a bag. And then when you get them home, you might stuff them all in a big bag and they might get all balled up. And this is what they end up looking like, all kinky and twisted and curled. And it's tough to get the fly to look right when you got a Zonker strip that looks like this. There's a way to fix this that's quite easy. Put on a tea kettle and gently steam your Zonker strips, and this is what you'll end up with, a nice straight piece. You have to be really careful though. Not only could you burn yourself, but you can actually singe the hair on this rabbit fur because it's quite delicate. So just a little bit of gentle steam, not too hot. In fact, get some steam going and then turn off the tea kettle and just have some steam coming up, and just hold it and stretch it and pull it a little bit in front of that steam, and then your Zonker strips will be back in shape and they'll be much easier to deal with, and your flies will look better. So that's my tip for Zonker strips, anyways, for getting them ready, because you don't want them looking like that. The other thing is that your deer hair is important in this muddler or sculpin kind of fly. You want hair that's coarse. You want hair that's coarse and round. And this is a good piece of hair probably tough for you to see it there, but you basically want to pick the coarsest deer hair that you have that has nice even ends, not all chopped up. Another piece, a couple other pieces I can show you. You can see I've labeled this one as good muddler hair. This is a good piece, and this big piece is great as well. But they've all got nice coarse hairs because you want this stuff to flare when you tie it in. And if it's too fine, it's not going to flare, and it's not going to give you that nice collar that you want on a deer hair fly. So, and the other thing that I would suggest you do, if at all possible, unless you can find a beautiful piece of dyed deer hair, because it's really tough to get good muddler dyed deer hair, I would use natural for everything. Just put a natural deer hair head on it. The reason is that when deer hair is dyed, you have to cook the living bejesus out of this stuff. To get the dye to take in deer hair requires a lot of heat in the dye bath. And what that does is it kind of cooks the hair, and it removes the spring from the hair, and it makes the hair less hollow and more compressed, particularly with black deer hair. I cannot find a good piece of black deer hair for tying sculpins or muddler types. You can find good colored deer hair when you're tying bass bugs with colored deer hair. What you're buying in as bass bug hair is you're tying belly hair, white belly hair that's been dyed. And the white belly hair is so coarse that it's still going to flare. But when you're talking about the stuff from the back or the shoulder, that makes stuff from the deer from the back of the shoulder that makes really good muddler heads, you're just not gonna, if it's dyed, you're probably not gonna get the look that you want. So what I suggest is you tie everything in natural and keep the head tan on these flies. You can make the wing and the body and the flash and the legs every other color. Keep the head the natural tan. And if you really want a color on that head, then just use a permanent marker and mark up the head. Okay? So those are a couple of material selection things. Do we have any questions at this point, Julia?
We have a couple of them.
Okay, good.
One was Michael wanted to know how the 3-inch drain situation's going.
The 3-inch drain situation is not good. Monday, the septic guy. Tuesday, the plumber. Wednesday, the septic guy came back. Today, the plumber came back and cut into the wall, and we're still not there. So the 3-inch pipe is not a happy situation here. But thank you for asking, Michael.
No, it's very thoughtful. He's also the same one that had the cement tip.
Yeah, I recognize the name. And thank you for the tip. You got any tips on plumbing, Michael?
Ed is asking, do you suggest markers to dye yourself?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
For the Zonker strips, or just in general, because you said you preferred natural, do you ever use markers to dye them or color them yourself?
The Zonker strips?
Yep.
I never tried the Zonker strips. You could. You could, yeah. I'm talking about the deer hair head. You can add some color to it if you want.
Maybe that's what, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's what he's asking about, but he was just wondering in general. If you
Yeah, just permanent marker, permacolor, or I forgot the name of them, but there's the permanent alcohol-based markers. They won't color the head as nicely as if you had tied it with colored deer hair. It'll be a little more mottled, which may be actually a good thing because it'll be look a little bit more like a sculpin head. So try that.
Okay. Dennis is asking, I noticed that you use either UTC thread or uni thread. Do you use specific thread for certain types of flies?
Not really. People send me thread. I have some buddies that work for, various wholesale fly tying companies, and they send me thread. And I use a lot of Orvis thread as well. It's just no, I don't really have a preference.
And Robert's asking, what size do you prefer for cone heads for the 6-weight hooks?
Good point. Good point. And something that I need to mention: a large cone on the size 6 hook, because it's about the only one I think you can get over that size 6 hook. And I've noticed that there's a lot of variation in the hole diameter in these cones, and sometimes you'll get a cone that just won't go over the hook, no matter what you do without bending the hook. So I don't know what to tell you about that. I don't think there's a lot of consistency in these cone diameters. You gotta find a cone that fits over your hook. And I've got some silver and black ones in large that won't go over my size 6 hook, but my gold ones will. I don't know if they were different lots or what. So I don't think the color of the cone matters much anyways, though. I don't think the color and streamers matter an awful lot as long as you're talking either a light one or a dark one. Honestly, I don't believe it. We like to play with different colors, and we sometimes think that a certain color combination of colors is going to make a difference. I'm not so sure it is.
Okay, great. Do you use, Wilson's asking if you use micro Zonker strips.
I would on a small one, but I wouldn't tie this fly with a micro Zonker strip. I'd tie this fly in a size 6, because I tie it in 6 with a Magnum or a standard Zonker. The micro Zonkers would be good for a size 10 or 12, and in which case you can tie them with a deer hair collar, but it's going to be, I would just wind another micro Zonker strip for the collar in front of the one that you put in for the wing. Or I'd tie some saddle hackle or something else for a collar instead of deer hair.
Okay. That's all the questions we have for now.
That's all the questions. Okay, I'm sure there'll be some when we start tying. Well,
Yeah.
let's start tying. Now, avert your eyes, because things are going to get wiggly here for a minute. I don't want you to get seasick. So, hang in there. Right. Here comes the wiggly part. Get ready. Here it comes. There, how's that? Perfect, right? Just kidding. Oh, great. Yeah. The Mayfly project. I was really excited to do my first mentoring project this year with the Mayfly project. For those of you who don't know, the Mayfly project is an organization that takes kids from foster homes and gives them a fly fishing mentor. And I was really excited to do that this year, but it's going to be tough this spring to do that. All right, I think I'm going to raise that up just a bit. One of the things that I recommend on this fly is that if you have a rotary vise, you want to put it in rotary mode, because you're going to be turning this fly a lot. How's that look? Looking good?
Maybe just a scooch to the right.
I'm going to move the camera.
The blue fills the frame.
How's that?
Awesome.
Okay, good. Let me get a little closer here. How's that? Everybody happy now? Okay, so I got a size 6 hook. Where's the camera? Where's the lens? There it is. I got a size 6 hook. I'm going to put a gold bead on it. So find a bead that fits that hook. That's all I can say. They're inconsistent. And I like tungsten because it's heavier. And you're just gonna flip it over the point. Now, sometimes if it's tough to get that cone on there, it'll whack the barb off the hook, which is a good thing. So sometimes you can debarb your hooks just by sliding that cone on there. It does push the barb down a little bit. Of course, you can always debarb it later. And then just slide it up to the front. And again, it just helps to have this in sort of rotary mode because you are going to be turning this fly a lot. Now, I like to cram a lot of weight in this fly. Every time I fish a streamer, I wish I had a heavier one. So I'm going to start out with not only a tungsten cone, but I'm going to cover the shank with wading wire, non-toxic wading wire. So I'm going to just start here and wind that forward till I get to the cone. Can usually break this if you're careful. And then before I do anything else, I'm going to, I don't like super glue on fly tying, but this one really needs it. I'm going to put some super glue in front of that. Just be careful that you don't put too much on there, because if you get it in the eye of the hook, it will be nearly impossible to, and I'm going to slide that wire forward. I don't want to jam the cone to the point where it gets off center, but I want that wire to get in there and support that cone. And you see that cone still wiggling. So I'm going to put some more super glue up inside there. But you got to be careful because you don't want to get it in the eye, because it is nasty to get out of there. All right.
Don't ask you what size of wire you're using.
20 thousandths. All right. So, and you know what? I'm even going to put a little more wire on there, because there's no harm to putting more wire on there, and I'm going to add some more. Oops. There. More the better. You want this thing to really sink, because that rabbit fur tends to kind of buoy the fly up. So I'm going to start with thread. I'm going to use 3/0 or 140 denier, kind of a tannish. The color doesn't matter at this point on the fly. I am going to switch to GSP to do the deer hair part of it. I don't always. I think you can tie this kind of deer hair with 3/0. It's pretty darn strong. You can put a lot of pressure on it. And I don't like tying the rest of the fly with GSP thread. So I'm going to start behind the wire, as you've probably seen me do a number of times, to form a bump there so it doesn't slide backward. And then I'm going to go back and forth diagonally around that wire just to get it really secure. We don't want things to slip. There's a lot of stuff in this fly that tends to slide just because we're putting a lot of stuff in here. So you want to use as much thread tension as you can here, and at all steps. This is one where you just want to crank down on the fly. Now I've got some Krystal flash. You could use Flashaboo, just some flashy material, whatever you got will work. I'm gonna cut a little piece of it. I'm gonna wet it to make it a little easier to work with. I put it in my mouth. If you don't like that idea, if it creeps you out, then just have a glass of water next to you.
Tom, we have a couple questions.
Sure.
I was asking what rod weight would throw this type of fly?
You could throw this on a 5, but that would probably, with all this weight on it, that would probably be the lightest. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 would work. Probably, ideally, a 6 or a 7, because it's got a lot of weight to it. Good question, though. All right, so, yep, go.
He's asking, do you ever use 210 denier thread?
No, I don't like 210 denier. It's too it's too heavy. It bulks up too much. I use it for saltwater flies sometimes when I want to bulk up a head, but 140 on trout flies and streamers is as heavy as I go. Yep. Good question, though.
That's it.
Okay. So, the flash length doesn't matter. Maybe, as long as a hook shank or something. I don't know. You just tying in a little flash there. So I'm kind of angling, and it's about a half dozen strands, 6, 8, 10, however you want. I don't like to overdo the flash. And I'm just going to secure that up to the wading wire and then trim it off. Or not. It's not going to add much bulk here. We can cover that up. So there's the flash on the end. Adjust this light a little bit. And then I'm going to come back right to the bend, and I'm going to get my Zonker Strip. Zonker Strip. And I'm gonna look for a spot where the hide is nice and straight and the fur is kind of uniform. This looks like a really good stretch of olive fur. I did steam this, so it's nice and straight, no kinks in it. And I'm just looking here. Yeah, I can start right at the end. So you can, if you want, carefully come in and cut a little V in it just to taper it. It doesn't matter. The fur is going to taper by itself anyways. But, we're tying flies here, right? I got a little V there. And then I'm going to hold the fur on top of the hook. And how long do I want this? I probably want the very end of the fur to be about twice the shank length. You want enough so that you got some wiggle in here. And so I think, maybe about there. You could go as long as that, or you could go as short as that, really. Depending on what you want to get out of the fly, but I've been doing it about right there. And then I'm going to come a little bit ahead of where I'm going to tie it off, like right about here, and I'm just going to cut it here. And if you come in carefully underneath with your scissors, you won't cut too much hair. So now I got my piece that's long, a little bit longer than the wing's going to be. And I'm going to find the point where I want to set it. And I'm thinking, yeah, right about there. What do you guys think? Right about there look good? I'm going to hold it there, and then I'm going to pull the hair forward here. There's my tie-in point. Yeah.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
When you're ready.
And I'm going to wet this fur. I don't put rabbit fur in my mouth because it does get pretty nasty in your mouth. And then that's going to keep it out of the way, and I'm just going to center that hide over the hook and come over and pull straight down with a really tight turn. And I'm going to take like 6 really tight, secure turns right on top of each other. Maybe 7. Okay. Then I'm going to turn this fly upside down, and your thread is always going to roll over the point, so you got to get it out of the way. And then when you look at it upside down, you can see if it's centered properly or not. And then I'm going to just put a drop of either super glue or head cement right here, because you got some exposed thread wraps there. And that thread is not going to get covered up with anything, and it could fray. And sharp teeth on a big brown trout might cut that. So I'm just going to put a drop of head cement. And I do it on the bottom so that I don't get too much of it on that rabbit fur. And you can bring some up here if you want. So.
Okay, Tom, I've got a couple questions.
Okay, go.
Wade's asking, do you ever use sewing thread on wooden spools because they fit so nicely in the bobbin?
No, but I'll show you something, Wade. I don't use sewing thread because sewing thread's horrible for tying flies. But I'll show you guys an antique that I've saved. Thread, Danville thread used to come on wooden spools. Now this thread's probably no good anymore. It's old, and I've saved it for photography because the spools look nice. That thread's probably totally worthless. It's probably really, really weak. But yeah, thread used to come on wooden spool. Tying thread used to come on wooden spools, and it was really nice. Am I going to re-spool new thread on this wooden spool? Too much work. Anyway, a bit of history there. For you guys.
How small of a stream or river would you throw this in?
God, if I thought there were some decent sized fish, I'd throw this anywhere. I'd throw it anywhere, especially if they're big brown trout. You think if they're brown trout at all in the river, there's probably some big ones. I would throw this in some pretty tiny streams if you thought there were some brown trout. Okay, so now we're going to go back. And so you can see why I'm tying rotary here, because we're going to be doing a lot of this rotating stuff. Scott, you bought Danville on a wooden spool last year. Yeah, you better check that thread before you use it, though, because that's old stuff. Oops, sorry. I keep getting my... Oops, something just fell downstairs. Oh, God. Okay, so I'm going to pull this Zonker strip out of the way, and I'm just going to take a couple turns in front of it, like so. And then I'm going to get my ice dub. I love this stuff. Sparkly, sparkly ice dub. Doesn't look as good on the camera. It's really sparkly. And, yeah, it's good stuff. And it's nice to dub. All the sculpins I see, and I'm thinking I'm going to imitate a sculpin. All the sculpins I see have a lighter belly. So I'm gonna use an olive, kind of a greeny tan ice dub, but a little bit lighter than the wing. So I'm going to dub this, and this stuff's start with, again, as with dubbing, start with a small tight noodle first, close to the, and then you want to get a little taper. This may go out of the frame here, but I'm just dubbing it on thicker. Wet your fingers sometimes helps it go on. Yes, you can wax the thread. I'll preempt that question if you want to. I don't wax my thread very often. There is some wax on these threads, not much.
All right, we've got a couple questions.
All right.
Would this also work for bass?
Yes, it's a great fly for bass, especially smallmouths, but largemouths will eat it. This fly would work in salt water as well on a on a stainless hook or on a corrosion resistant hook. It's a lot of fuss for a saltwater fly, but yeah, it is a great bass fly, particularly in olive and black for smallmouths. Great bass fly. It'll catch white perch, white bass. It'll catch nearly anything that eats a minnow will eat this thing. Okay, so we're gonna wind our dubbing. We're gonna try to take that first turn, and I gotta come in here by the phone. I may bump the phone, so get ready. Okay, sorry guys, but I had to take that call. Julia, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. We're hanging on.
Okay, sorry about that. You're all getting the saga of my septic system. But I had to take that call, and I apologize.
Okay, so what I was asking is, Michael asked, he said he inherited a bunch of silk thread on wooden spools.
Yeah.
And he said they're too weak to tie with, but they're really
Yeah.
pretty. Could
Yeah.
he chop them up and dub with them?
No. No. Silk thread is it's going to be more frustration than it's worth. Yeah, silk thread deteriorates pretty quickly, and it would be nice to tie with it, but even dubbing on it, I think, would be a problem. It's just really, really weak. So I'm going to come up to about here because I need to keep room for that collar, and then I'm just going to pull my Zonker strip over the top, pull it back so it looks nice, and I'm gonna leave some of the fur ahead of my tie-in point in there, because if I tied it in right there, I'd get kind of a gap there, and I want a little bit more fur in there. So I'm gonna do this. And that's why I wanted you to make this piece longer, and then come over the top, pull straight down, really tight, really tight, really tight. As tight as you can pull it, almost breaking your thread, because there's a lot of stuff at the front of this fly, and it's going to start to twist if you're not careful. Then I'm going to cut. It's always tough to make some of these cuts with this phone. I'm going to cut the Zonker strip even with the front of the cone, back of the cone, like so. You could save that little snippet of Zonker strip for dubbing. Rabbit fur is great dubbing. And then I'm going to, again, lots of pressure. Lots and lots, as much pressure. You guys tying along with me? I hope you are. Lots of pressure in there. You do not want this thing to roll. Now that's in there. That's in there nice and tight. Okay, so now I'm going to flip it upside down, like so. And I'm going to take some red flash. Flashaboo, Krystal flash, whatever flashy stuff you got. You could use a piece of yarn. We're just going to make a little throat, a little red throat to imitate the gills of the whatever this is. Who knows what it's imitating? Some kind of bait fish, a sculpin, most people think. So I've wetted a bunch of that, and I would say maybe I don't know, 10, 15 strands is good. And you can wet a long length of that and lay it out on the table, and it'll stay there, and then you can keep using pieces of it. So you can lay it out on, you can't see my table, you can lay it out on your table, and then if you're tying a bunch of them, you got a whole bunch of throats. I'm going to make this a little shorter. And then I am going to come up a little bit with my thread. And I'm going to fold this flash around my thread so that's about 50-50 on either side. I'm going to bring it up. And again, tight turns. I don't need to go back there right now. And don't worry about the length here because you're going to trim it. All right, so I don't want that much throat. You just want a little hint of gills there. So I'd come in and maybe do something like that to get that red throat. You could even make it shorter. Now I'm going to turn my fly on its side, and I'm going to cut 2 of these speckled silicone legs. I really like these. I'll show you these speckled barred pearl legs. I really like these silicone legs. They're thick enough. They're really wiggly, but they're thick enough so that they have some bulk to them. And I'm going to cut 2 of them. You can't see that. And then I'm going to fold the leg over the thread in half, somewhere around there. Again, we're going to trim this. Bring it up top. Now we're on the side of the fly. And again, tight turns of thread. And then it's easier to trim this now rather than later. So I like to make it a little bit longer than the bend of the hook. I'll come in here, cut those off. So now you got your legs that are going to stick out to the side. Now I'm going to do this, turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. You could do this without going rotary, but just being able to rotate the vise makes it so much easier. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to fold the silicone leg over the thread. Bring it up top. Get it in place. And then tight turns. There's a lot of stuff in here. And you can see I can't wiggle that now, which is what I want. I don't want that thing to be moving around after I fish it for an hour or so. And the nice thing about streamers is you're usually fishing a heavy tippet, and you don't lose many of them. So you really want to make sure that you put a lot of durability into your streamer flies, because they're going to last you for a while. They're not going to fall apart. Okay, so I'm going to whip finish right here. We're not done, but I'm going to whip finish because I'm going to put the hated super glue on here, or head cement. And you only need about 3 turns because you're going to put super glue on top of this. Then I'm going to cut it off.
Tom, we have a couple questions.
Sure.
All right.
Well,
Okay, I'm trying to understand what he's asking. Do you like to tie the wing with wire, Matuka style?
no, I don't. I don't think you need to, but you could. That would to further reinforce it. Yeah, I know what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Matuka style. Yep.
Do you have any substitutes that you recommend for the red flash? Some people are saying red floss.
Yeah, red fly. Anything red. Flashy is nice. Something flashy is nice, but doesn't have to be. Red yarn, just some a little snippet of wool yarn. Anything you can tie in there. You could even dub a little red throat in there. Just put some dubbing and brush it out. You're just trying to get a little impression of some gills underneath the fly.
Okay.
Okay.
And Rosa asked, they said they missed the thread weight at the beginning, and they said assuming 140 with all these tight wraps. 140,
yep, 140,
okay.
Exactly. But now I'm going to switch to GSP, which is it's a gel spun polyester, very, very strong thread that you can, you can pull the hook out of the vise before you break the thread. And you'll notice when I tie the deer hair with this, I'm actually going to have to brace the fly with my hand when I pull on it so that I don't bend the hook. That's how heavy this stuff is. Now, you want to come up a little ways from the wing. I don't like to put my collar right up against the wing. So you can see I'm a little distance in front of the wing. This stuff is all going to be covered up here, so your thread wraps are not going to show. Now I'm going to take that good deer hair, and I am going to I'm going to grab a pretty good bunch of hair. Okay? Pretty decent sized bunch of hair. And cut it close to the hide.
Okay, Mark's asking if you use a loop knot with the streamer.
I don't use a loop knot, but a lot of people do. I don't like loop knots.
And Greg says he really enjoyed your new bass video. If you want to talk about your show a little bit, but then what poly leader would you recommend for bass if you don't have a sink tip? He's asking.
I tell Dave I mentioned it on the podcast, which should be out later today. But the 10 foot fast sinking poly leader will work great. I am using GO2, GSP plus, GO2, Vivus. I can't get it in there.
And Anita's asking, Anita Colton.
Hi, Anita.
If no GSP, what is a good alternative?
You can stick with the 140 denier. I've been tying. I tied probably a couple dozen of these to get ready for this tying session, and I found that the 140 denier, you can put enough pressure on it.
And our friend Phil just reminded me to tell everybody that our giant fly sale ends on Sunday. If you aren't up for making your own and you want to order some, they're on sale through Sunday.
Okay.
And that your Strike Bass show is on YouTube tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Oh, that's right. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. If you want to watch the premiere of the second show in the Orvis Guide to Fly Fishing Season 2, it's all about striped bass.
I'll put a link to it in the comments.
Okay, great. So I got my bunch of hair. I'm going to put it in a big stacker. You got to have a large diameter stacker. And you don't have to stack it if you don't want, but it looks neater. And then I'm going to tap it on the table. Pull it out. And the hair will be nice and even. Look at that. Beautiful. I'm going to carefully grab that hair. And then I am going to switch hands, which you can't see me doing. And I like my collar about halfway to the hook point. So I'm going to put this right about here. And I'm going to bring it a little bit toward me. And I'm going to take one turn and let that hair kind of start to roll a little bit. And then I'm going to start to apply pressure. Then I'm going to take another turn right on top of that hair and apply more pressure. And then I'm going to go a third time with as much pressure as I can. So that's step one. Now, this is not like spinning deer hair. Because we have wire underneath there, we can't really spin this deer hair around the shank like you normally could with deer hair. So I've found that you need to add 3 bunches of hair to cover properly. So now I'm going to come around to where the hair stopped right there, and I'm going to prepare another bunch of hair. About the same size. And I wish you could do this in 2 bunches, but I just found, and you know, a lot of people will tie their deer hair collars so that they just cover the top part of the hook, and they clip the bottom flat because the sculpins have flat heads. But I like to tie these in the round, so I like to have my collar go all the way around. So I do need 3 bunches to do it. I got another bunch of hair that I just evened out in the stacker. And then I'm going to line it up to make sure that it's the same length as that other hair. And then I'm going to try to find that same place and put my second bunch of hair, and I want to start right where the other bunch stops so that I cover this completely. And you got to really, really put some pressure on there. You can see it's spinning a little bit. That's okay. The hair spun, the wing didn't. And then when I turn it, I see that I still got a place. So I've found that three bunches seems to cover a size 6 hook. Now, if you didn't have the wire underbody like I did, you could leave this part of the hook bare. You'd have to tie in your wing further back, and you could flare this hair. I guess the plumber's here, or the septic guys are here now, by the sound of the dogs barking. You're all gonna know my deepest secrets. And I got my third bunch stacked. How's everybody doing on their flies? You with me here?
Brian's asking, have you ever used sculpin helmets to make these flies?
I have, yeah. I like deer hair better. Sculpin helmets are cool, but I'm not so sure they catch fish as well as deer hair. So I'm going to take that third bunch of hair, line it up, and again, I'm going to give it a lot. I'm holding onto that hook, and I'm just cranking down as much as I can there. All right. So now you can inspect it, and you got a collar all the way around it. So I'm happy. Now, what I'm going to do is give it another pull straight down. And now I'm going to wiggle this thread up through the hair. Normally, when you tie a bass bug, you would compress this hair back with your thumbnail, but you can't do it here because you got that wire. You got that wire underneath, and you can't get in there anyway because of the cone. But this really secures the hair. So I'm just going to I'm going to keep moving a little bit forward, and what's going to happen is as I get closer to that cone, the hair is going to stick straight up. And you want to kind of weave it in through there. And you can see as I get closer to that cone, it's kind of flaring straight up. There. Now, I'm going to pull all this hair back. Take a couple of turns, and you got to get in behind that cone. You got to kind of wiggle the thread in behind that cone. Again, lots of pressure, lots and lots of pressure. And then I'm going to whip finish. There's a little bit of trick to whip finishing behind the cone. You start your whip finish, and when you take that first turn, you push down to get it to sink down behind that cone. Don't worry if you tie a few hairs under. You should try to avoid it because your knot won't be as secure, but just pull down, pull a little bit on the bobbin, and you want that whip finish to be totally buried in behind that cone. And then I'm going to carefully pull that tight, and I'm going to really pull on that GSP. I literally can't break this stuff. Now I'm going to cut my thread. GSP is hard to cut, but that one cut okay. And now is the kind of the fun part. Now is the fun part. So you can do the whole trimming with a pair of scissors, but I like to use a scissors and a double-edged razor blade. You need a double-edged razor blade. Single edge razor blades are not usually sharp enough to do this, so you need a double-edged blade. But you can do the whole thing with your scissors. But you want to try to use the cone for a gauge and kind of just angle your scissors. Be careful not to cut that collar when you do this. And just go around. And don't worry if you're missing a few, because we'll fix that later. kind of make a rough cut all the way around. You have trouble getting in here when you get to the eye.
Tom, Wade's asking what is your favorite bobbin to tie with?
Oh, I don't know. I have like 16 bobbins sitting on my desk here. I like the Mattarelli style, which is, so there's a rough trim on that head, and that's nowhere near. So I could keep going with my scissors, but I like to finish it off with a double-edged razor blade. This is an old bobbin. This is a style I like. It's the traditional style. They still make them. This is an old Mattarelli, but we call it Mattarelli style. It just works. It just works great. Simple. You can adjust the tension by bending the legs in and out, and they're smooth and they just work great. So now I'm going to come in with you really only get a couple of flies out of a single edge razor blade, so you want to buy a bunch of them cheap online. And then I'm going to kind of cut at an angle, and you just make a little sawing motion. And you keep going around.
Sometimes you'll not look though. Sometimes you'll not look. Maybe you show them. Or I just try to show them.
That looks great, Tom.
It looks better than the first one I tied the other day, I'll tell you that. And you can get anal about this and really shave it if you want. Fish don't care. We care, but the fish don't care.
This is actually just a question for me. What is that tool you're using?
It's a single edge razor blade.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
Yeah, plain old cheap single edge razor blade.
Nice.
Okay, so I got a few of these coarse hairs here, but the thing is they're weak at the base. So if you have a bunch of those, you just pluck them. You just go around and find those ones that are, oh, there's only one there. Huh. And then you go around, you find another spot. You want to trim it a little bit. And God, you can go crazy. You can go crazy. And if you don't want to go too crazy because you don't want to cut that collar. So there is a Conehead bunny muddler. And I would also, at this point, I'm going to trim it again. See, this is like you can't stop once you get started. You can't stop once you get started trimming these things. You'll go nuts. Okay, so halfway decent anyway. Better than my first attempt. Hopefully yours is better than my first attempt. And then either head cement or super glue. Just a couple of drops in there. Let it soak into that deer hair.
Must be something you searched on.
Maybe at all 4 points of the compass. Because again, this fly's going to last a while. Ooh, too much. Be careful. This is why I don't use super glue. There. Now that fly is not going to wiggle. That head's not going to wiggle. It's not going to rotate. It's going to stay nice and secure, and it's going to last for lots and lots of fish. So that is the Conehead bunny muddler. Not the easiest fly in the world to tie. But they're pretty satisfying to tie. They look really cool, and they are a very, very effective fly for trout, especially early season. Great early season fly when the fish are chasing streamers. Questions?
We don't have any questions. Actually, hold on.
Easter bunny muddler. Ha 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 ha.
Sean's asking if you shave with a safety razor.
What? Sean's asking what?
It's asking if you shave with a safety razor.
Me,
I don't know if it's you
Oh.
personally or with your flies.
I don't know. I use a double-edged razor for I don't shave. You guys, haven't you guys noticed I have a beard?
And Henry Cohen wished you a happy Passover.
Oh, happy Passover to you, Henry. I'm not Jewish, but I'll wish you a happy Passover.
John is asking what colors with black micro.
What colors with black micro? I don't know.
Not sure.
Whatever your little heart desires. I would tie it all black. But again, I'd use a natural deer hair head because of the problems of getting black deer hair and hit it with a marker to color it up. I'd make it all black. I'd keep the flash the same color. Maybe the legs, I'd keep the legs the same color, but then I'd use a black body and a black Zonker strip. That's me, but who knows? Who knows what might work?
Wade asked if you ever UV the heads on them.
I don't. No, I don't UV the heads. I know that like Tommy Lynch does with his D&D ones where he wants to get a platform on top of it, but I don't UV the heads. No. I want that. I want those air bubbles in there. I want this thing to create some commotion in the water. I want that friction between the deer hair and the water. I think it calls fish in with their lateral line. So I wouldn't UV the head on this one. Nope. Not this one. Some other ones maybe.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
Looks awesome. I agree.
Happy Passover, happy Easter, stay healthy, and we will see you all on Monday. What are we tying on Monday? Do you remember? Was it a Copper John?
I have us ready to go at the end of it. 1 second.
I know I'm tying a stimulator next week and a Copper John, and
Yep.
oh, here's some of my colors, guys. So I like tan. Here's a tan one. Here's a black one with an ugly head. See how ugly that head is? Because I couldn't get decent black deer hair. Looks terrible. And then white. Tied some white ones. Kind of a barred white. Barred white one. White and gray. And then I did some I used a mottled rabbit strip for kind of a sculpin-y imitation, but you can go nuts on these things. It's a streamer fly, it's a lure, so go nuts, have fun, and don't be dogmatic about it. Experiment with your colors.
Michael just asked, would you swing this fly with like jig action?
Yeah, you could. I'd like all streamers, I'd fish it always. I'd fish it dead drift, I'd fish it strip like mad, I'd swing it, and wait till the fish tell me what I should be doing.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. What time do we go live Monday? 3 Eastern time, Kevin.
Yep.
Same time every day, 3 days a week. Thanks, everyone. And don't forget now, there is a playlist on our YouTube channel. So the Orvis YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and watch some of the other ones, they're all on YouTube now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.